Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome you to FORE International Marketing Conference 2021, and this is the session which we are all looking at. That is panel discussion where we are having representation from corporates and across various sectors, and also from academia. So from academia and corporates, from academia we are having Dr. Nancy Richmond. Now, at the very outset, I would take the opportunity to have a brief about the participants. I welcome Mr. Cherish Jacob. Mr. Jacob is the General Manager, Middle East, India and Southeast Asia at Movado Group, which is based, I think, in Dubai. So Mr. Jacob is from Dubai. He is the general manager of this group, and he has over 17 years of rich experience working with various prestigious organizations like Radhika Khaitan, AMRB, Rivoli, so on. And we are very close to him, and he is also very close to us because he is the alumnus of FORE School of Management with a PGDM from here. And also he has completed the MSc in Advanced Marketing Management from Lancaster University. Once again, warm welcome to Mr. Jacob.
Thank you. I'm happy to be.
Thank you. Hi, Kapil. Yeah.
Hi,
Hello.
Professor. Sorry, I was a couple of minutes late.
No, not an issue. So we have Mr. Kapil Grover, Chief Marketing and Digital Officer, Burger King India. He has over 20 years of brand building experience across diverse categories like QSR, FMCG, alcohol beverage, steering his team through the challenges thrown by the pandemic and the evolving trends of digital marketing and payments. Mr. Grover comes to us with a lot of relations. One needs to excel in the marketplace, and he is also an FSM alumnus. He subsequently went on to complete the Harvard Business School certificate course, Economics for Managers. So once again, warm welcome to Mr. Grover.
Thank you very much.
We have with us Mr. Kush Mehra, CBO, Pine Labs. Mr. Kush currently, he is also an alumnus of FORE School of Management with PGDM in Marketing and HR. He has extensive experience of over 16 years in the payment industry. He's from a different industry, payment industry, and has worked with prestigious organizations like American Express, Visa, Citibank. He possesses an in-depth understanding of the payments ecosystem and played a pivotal role in leading the expansion of Pine Labs in the APAC region. We have with us, welcome you, Kush, for joining, coming. And we have with us my good friend, schoolmates, Mr. Sangram Sinha, Commercial Director, Pernod Ricard Asia, Seagram, Myanmar. Mr. Sangram is currently managing the commercial operations and leading the transformation agenda of Seagram, Myanmar, which is a joint venture of Pernod Ricard Asia and Win Brothers, Yoma Group, and Delta Capital. He is currently leading a commercial organization of 350 plus people with 10 sales branches and 23 regional depot and units across the country, and driving the development of the product portfolio and introduction of international spirits in the market. He is an alumnus of INSEAD and NMIMS and has around 25 years of experience in sales and marketing. We have with us, welcome Sangram. Okay, Sangram is a very frequent in FORE, so I call him in certain guest lectures, and he had a lot of value for the FORE students. We have with us from the academics, Dr. Nancy Richmond, Assistant Teaching Professor of Florida International University, College of Business. Dr. Richmond is working as Assistant Teaching Professor, Department of Marketing and Logistics at Florida International University. She has a doctoral degree from Northeastern University, USA. She has over 19 years of experience as a speaker, social consultant, well-being career expert. Her interest area, as I understand, is digital marketing. So that's where is. So welcome, Nancy, in this program. So there's no denying the fact that we have we are passing through still through pandemic. And my first question, and you'll all agree that during the past disruption, there is a lot of changes in the consumers' expectations and behavior. So I'll be posing the first question to across your industry. So I'd like to have a response from Alpha Beverage and also FMCG. We are having Kapil also there primarily, and also from others. That what are the key changes during the past disruption which they have noticed in consumer behavior and marketing reaction? So, and what they have done actually to overcome the challenges. So I'll first go to Kapil, and then we'll be going to Sangram. So request Kapil to.
Thank you, Professor, and very good afternoon, everyone. Great to see some industry colleagues, and great to see you, Cherish, here.
Hey.
Cherish and I have worked together for a few years. Okay, so see, our category, which is restaurant, went through a very tough time in the last 2 years. We were one of the worst hit when the lockdowns happened. And at the same time, consumers were the worst hit in this space in F&B, because how much will you cook at home? Yes, there was this initial excitement of making dalgona coffee and all of that, but that weaned away after some time. And every time we used to get into consumer groups, used to hear that, listen, absolutely, we would love to order your food, but we are worried, is it safe? Where do I go? I'm kind of tired of cooking, especially the women folk. They're saying, listen, I'm cooking 4 meals a day, 5 meals a day. So that was a big problem, a consumer problem and category problem. On our side, people suffered a lot. But, as always is the case, necessity is the mother of invention. The industry almost catapulted into digital overnight. The branded high quality restaurants got separated from the unorganized sector very clearly. The unorganized sector suffered a lot. I mean, that it's sad to see how they suffered. Their livelihood suffered a lot. But consumers started to rely a lot on branded players like us. In fact, in those days, I was part of the Domino's marketing team. I was heading their marketing, and we clearly saw consumers looking for trusted brands. So I think three fundamental things happened in this sort of period that we are still passing through, as you said, Professor. One, it has reset the consumer's value equation, right? Earlier, it was a fairly simple equation of price, value for money. In our category, we also talk about shareable value because food is always shareable. That has fundamentally got reset, right? Consumers are still demanding value, they're still demanding innovation, they're still demanding quality, but they've become far more discerning than they were in the previous times. Just to give you an example, at Burger King now, our food, which is very unheard of, that in a QSR space, what is termed sometimes as junk food, our food is free of artificial colors and synthetic flavors, and will be preservative free by the end of this year. So imagine eating a burger which is free of synthetic colors, artificial flavors, and preservatives. That's what we've been pushed to do, because consumers demand that a lot more than they used to in the pre-pandemic days, right? They become far more aware. This whole holistic well-being has become a new concept. It's not just about going to the gym and keeping yourself fit. It's looking at everything. I mean, they've become far more label savvy, as I call them. They started to read between the lines. What am I eating? What does it have? What does it not have? Right. So that's one thing that has fundamentally changed. In our category, digital has become a huge play. I mean, at one point in time, there was no other way to reach consumers other than digital, right? Online ordering, you had to have an app for the consumer to reach out to you and order food. You have to have zero contact and online payments, and all of these transformed. Some brands were better prepared, like Domino's. They were much better prepared to tackle that because they had a very strong delivery system. Other brands, which are more conventional dine-in restaurants, right, where you go for experience, they had to sort of pivot very quickly, and that happened. At Burger King, we are also very, very quickly moving into online ordering and improving our systems to be able to adapt to consumer demand. I think this is an interesting conversation I was having with one of my colleagues, that we believe that a lot has changed. Consumers, as I said, still demand value, but they demand it differently. The equation has changed a little bit. They still demand innovation, right? Because they kind of still seek to go out and try new concepts, try new food. They still demand quality, but they've become far more sort of conscientious and conscious about it. Yeah, so that's my perspective, from my category. I'm sure others have sort of experienced similar, Sangram, in your category, experienced very interesting trends, I believe.
Yeah, so that's why I'm just thinking of going to Sangram, because particularly in Alcobave, what is happening? So what are the pandemic? What are the disruptions? What are the issues they face, and how they have taken the challenge and appropriately design their strategy to negotiate those challenges. So over to Sangram.
Yeah, thanks, Nirmala, and very nicely articulated by Kapil that primarily there are these more discerning consumers emerging. There is digital as a pillar is becoming, obviously the media is getting more concentrated to a digital, and all the other things, while innovation and everything is important, but it's getting more micro at a consumer space gradually. So before telling what exactly is happening in uh, Alcobev, since I was doing a broad work on this, I would like to share some of the findings of our research. That what we found that in the past 18 months of this progress of this pandemic, so consumer psychosis, human psychosis led to consumer psychosis that moved from a fear zone to a learning zone, and now to a maturing or a kind of a growth zone. So initial stage, you will see it was consumer was frightened. There were a lot of knee-jerk action being taken. So there were a lot of panic. But then people started understanding that it is going to stay, and they started becoming more evolved and trying to balance and adjust. Now there are few cues which are coming out from the consumer behavior, which are much more matured, which looks like that as a pattern overall, unknowingly, subconsciously. But consumer is getting more prepared, you know, um, to stay with this kind of a disruption for a longer time and balancing everything. So, I mean, this initial stage of shock and denial, which led to frustration, is now actually leading to more experiments, confirmed decision making, and integration of, a renewed individual, which people are trying to modify themselves. A person who used to party a lot in our industry, he was probably my biggest consumer, who will go to the best nightclubs and spend a lot on premium alcohol, on cognacs, on champagnes, and all. He is now partying less, but he is having calling few friends in home, having a very different kind of consumption pattern. He is more concerned about his health. So you will find the same consumer who was binging at a previous time. Now he is getting into more, wines or less alcoholic products, and slightly, the sense of well-being and fun, that that balance is becoming more matured. And you will see that all the alcobev players, actually the leading ones, they're actually talking more about responsible drinking, responsible behavior, health as a prime criteria, drinking a lot of water. So because this pandemic has taught us that we should be safe and healthy first, and within that we need to balance our other entertainments and sources of enjoyments. So these critical need space has given birth to few behaviors. So out of which obviously one is digital, which Kapil rightly said, but there are a few other things which are coming out, is like consumer is looking for frictionless things. So obviously the channel shift is going to happen if somebody can give a space that all the bottles you are picking up from the shelf are sanitized, and they are safe, and you don't have to touch. So that kind of stuffs are coming up. So there are digital browsing shelf is coming. You just wave your hand and those things get picked up, and you get a conveyor carrying those stuffs to you, kind of stuff. Even I'm seeing, like in Southeast Asia, every building I'm going, I'm finding the lifts are no touch. So there is all, waving, and these have all emerged. So it's not only in our industry. So people are getting slightly more, beyond human kind of stuff. So obviously there'll be more impact of artificial intelligence. Alexa will be more frequent in days to come. That can be very clearly said. Even the kids, and it's very common to see the kids and adults, are accompanied by this robo, which is some 800-900 USD kind of a robo. Furat Robotics, they made it. In Hong Kong, you will find it quite often. Even in Thailand, I'm seeing. So even the dogs are getting, going for a poo with a robo. So you understand that people are trying to avoid doing everything. So these kind of beyond human behaviors are coming. So people are also trying to be, more quick, and even the food deliveries and everything, they are trying to get into thing that, well, one outer carton comes and that is touched. So when you come, you pick up your stuff from the outer carton, so you really don't touch the things inside. So surprisingly, in India, I have not seen, at least even in, I was in Goa and Gurgaon, though I'm sure Bombay would be more advanced, but I have not seen this kind of behaviors, even if I bought from the ITC. Once the food came from ITC, but that also came like a Sardarji came with his huge trays and delivered stuffs. So, but Southeast Asia being more finicky to hygiene and cleanliness, and probably these things are emerging from there first. So there are a few other things which is coming. People are becoming more inclusive. So they understood that uh, that softer things in life are more important. So I mean, like in Starbucks China, you will find defend of there is a section for the deaf and dumb community. So they make the successful store openings. Even in Washington, Kuala Lumpur, I'm told that these things are happening. And Starbucks providing interactive tablets for customers to write down their orders. The signing language, everything are there in the coffee shops, so that the community can associate, encourage. So these are all associated or secondary outcome of a huge reset, which Kapil was talking about, that there is a reset. And after that reset, we are getting to some values which were there but which were kind of lost. We are trying to kind of reinvent those. So private personalization is a critical thing which is coming. Like even your face recognition cannot be protected with a glass. So this kind of glass, the IR pairs, reftactals, they have made it. There are like DNA-based sushi, which is coming in Japan. The sushi singularity, they made, uh, the design studio, which is, it's a sushi restaurant that collects and analyzes genetic materials from customers to create customized, dishes using 3D printers. And they give you exact, recipe, which is, not even gross. It is like to the point, which fits to your, DNA. And, you know, the inclusion diversity, it's not just because of George Floyd, also because of this pandemic that is becoming more and more prevalent. And clean air everywhere, people are thinking of more cleanliness, while we still are not clear whether COVID is airborne or not, but we are surely more hygiene conscious. And as a result of these kind of consumer behaviors, what is coming out, that yes, digital is clearly one parameter, but people are nesting more at home. So all the home entertainments and stuffs like big screen televisions, and all these things like your special boards, karaoke's, they are on multi-percent growth. And wellness and hygiene segments, they are growing very, very fast, and redefining the brand with a purpose. So the marketeers who are addressing the needs of the human being in a very different way, where there is a sense of purpose or an association with the community, they are doing well. And another factor which is observed is, while everybody was going global, now there is a trend of thinking local. while going global. So getting back to the roots, probably that is coming back. So this was in broad what the COVID has done to the marketing world. It is led by, and in our industry, it is not different because we suffered in the on-trade, which is the premise where people go out and drink, which is the bar, restaurant, cafe, nightclubs, and all. But at the same time, there is a shift to off trade because people spending more time at home. So they started drinking at home. Home parties became big. So as a manufacturer of alcobev product, um, our segment didn't suffer a lot. So if you see, even while there was a dip in that March to July period, last year, but after September, all the alcobev companies, global stocks and everything started zooming because that segment overall didn't suffer both on the top line and the bottom line. But a huge part of our ecosystem, which is the on-premise, which is the restaurants, clubs, especially the standalones, as Kapil was saying, the fragmented ones, those who are not having the big pocket of the biggies of the world. So they really suffered. And that would be a challenge. If there is something called a post-COVID world, we'll have to get that community back, get these bars, restaurants, waiters, bartenders back in the business. That would be a critical challenge.
Shangram, whether any particular specific strategy you have taken to negotiate this challenge, the challenge that you say that is will be, but still when the businesses are gradually coming down, any particular strategy from your company which is directed to that, if any?
Directly, nothing could be done because there were no options. But two, three things came out which could be taken as a preemptive strategy, which were part of some strategic, decisions in the company. Like not only our company, all the companies started realizing that there is a huge community who is, suffering, who were part of our ecosystem. So there was a solidarity, and there was a campaign for that. There was fundraising for that. There was a sharing of your profit for them. So all the big companies, like including Panorica, Diageo, AB InBev, all of them, even the Indian players, they have contributed to the bartenders and the restaurateur communities. So giving them the strength, at least during the time of bad times. So it is not as a part of CSR, they did it as a part of sustenance objective. So it's not just a CSR. CSR they did for, making, like all the alcohol people, when their business was shut, they were making, those alcoholic sanitizers and stuff like that. That even Zara, a premium brand like Zara, they started making those, those masks. So, and they gave it for free. So that was more about, standing with the community. That was part of CSR. But helping the bartender and the nightlife and the on-trade people across the world, like Ibiza as an island, it was shut for 8 months. So just understand that the Tomorrowland, which happens every year, and we are the biggest sponsor, is the second year it happened digitally. So digitally Tomorrowland means and all the people who survive on that, so they are kind of jobless. So the organizations who were part of that, they tried to see that a part of their profit go to them. So that was one thing. And another thing which we learned, which is part of the strategy now, that one thing came out during the 2003 SARS outbreak. All England Long Tennis Association, they made a insurance policy. Okay, and they were paying a premium of 2 million pound each year, to that for their insurance policy as a premium. If anything happens to Wimbledon or their insurance, if it's cancelled because of any outbreak, if they did it in 2003, then they will get compensated. So obviously from 2003 to 2019, they probably paid some 32 million pound as a insurance premium, but they get 145 million pound, in 2020 as a, yes, when they didn't do the. So the learning is that this world is more unpredictable than we can imagine. Something like this can really happen, which can stop industries like, Virgin going bankrupt, nobody could think of. And that happened, right? Virgin Atlantic going bankrupt. So we should be more insured for this kind of thing. So these two things are the key driver, that think people first. And like the Nestle CEO, he made a beautiful comment that during crisis, you don't run a company, you run a family, and you run neighbors. So family is
Yes,
your own
great,
company,
great.
and neighbors is your ecosystem. So if you
Fantastic
ensure
comment.
that your family
Yeah.
and neighbors are surviving, then you will survive and stay
So,
insured.
yeah, great. So I'll be going to now Cherish before going to Push. What is your experience? How your company negotiated? What are the realities? You are in a different culture altogether. So
Yes.
how things change and what you did to address the issues that came up. So over to Cherish.
Thank you, Professor, and great meeting you all. And I would actually challenge Kapil, when he said that the restaurant industry is the worst hit. I thought our industry was the worst hit. I come from the watches and jewelry segment. When we went into this, when we went into COVID, I mean, we actually started questioning our own existence. Right. I mean, if the restaurant industry feels challenged, okay, that people will not buy enough fancy takeout, who would buy a watch? You have impacted your salaries. You're worried about your loved ones. Why would you indulge in yourself in a watch and jewelry segment? Why would is that the last one to come? And to top on over it, whenever there is a small sign of a wave anywhere, the first shop to close is a non-essential shop. And we have administrations around the world who will decide what is essential, what is not essential. I still have not been able to understand how people decide, okay, a supermarket, everything inside that is an essential, anything outside that is a non-essential. Whereas if you look at it from a capacity point of view, supermarkets can be more bigger super spreaders than, small boutiques which are selling non-essential items, right? So that was the point in which we went into this industry, that whether we will ever continue to survive. But the start was always painful, how we started, but to our surprise, consumers have always surprised us, and they have come out very clearly saying that they still want to survive. Yes, money has affected. We had people who were buying watches even in lockdowns. I'm not very sure how they would show it off or what they would do. But our industry, as soon as, especially for us, sitting in the Middle East, handling, let's say, the Middle East region, India and Southeast Asia, we had another challenge. The challenge was the disease would manifest in different places in different times. Meaning right now in Dubai, we don't have, India is all clear. But Southeast Asia, I think Sangram would be able to say, Singapore was closed till last 2 weeks ago, right? We had all those restrictions. So we were not having a one size fit all strategy for it. But this is what we did to come out of it. Like Kapil said, number one, overnight we became a digital company. Overnight, we built in resources to how to get direct to consumer ASAP and in the most effective manner. That is number one. Number two, how we decided to fight this level of uncertainty and volatility was to bring in a clear vision. Because the best tool we thought to fight volatility is to have a clear vision internally. So from a leadership point of view, we set out a clear vision and understanding, and that was exactly communicated to the team under me. So that whatever happens, they know exactly where they have to reach. The third thing which we try to focus is on content. We believe that we will never become relevant to people unless and until we show them relevant content. I mean, I would say from watches, for example, we started building content around gifting. We started building content, for example, gift to remember. You are trying to send a gift to a certain loved one, just trying to show that you remember them during these tough times. We tried to show people how to maintain watches, right? How to store them effectively. And the last point, what we did was to have more accountability in our marketing programs. We decided that we needed to, it was very clear at what level of the funnel we have to focus on. It was not on the top of the funnel where we have to build in more awareness, but it was definitely at the bottom of the funnel where we need more conversions. So those kind of marketing levers were identified, and we tried to step up our accountability for all our investments. And when we put all these things together, and with certain level of recovery happening, uh, our industry, especially our company, etc., most of our industries, I mean, if you follow the quarter results, most of the watch companies have delivered the best quarter results ever in the last 6 to 7 years. So what has happened is, for watches which they have not bought, let's say for 3 months, 4 months, consumers have done their duty. They have made up. Right. It's just that we have changed ourselves, the way we are adapting to it, the way we are making ourselves relevant to it. But definitely we have concluded that whether it's a fifth wave or a sixth wave or a seventh wave, we now know how to ride these waves on the top.
Now I'll be going to yeah. Anything?
So one question, actually two questions, Cherish.
Please,
So
please.
one for my inquisitiveness, another one is related to what you said. So this last quarter, the best performance, that is in absolute terms or in terms of growth?
In absolute terms, I mean, I'm talking across the industry. If you look at 3 to 4, one of the largest watch companies, you will see highest ever growth in the last 2 to 3 years.
And okay, so that was
And
completely
also
unexpected.
draws from the fact, Sangram, that watch industry as a whole has been on a downward slide or has a muted growth since 2016 onwards, when the Apple Watch was introduced. You understand? So from that time onwards, it's a lot of industries have been on muted growth. But right now in the pandemic, a lot of them have got a second life.
That is quite surprising, because in our case, we have seen the premium alcohol growing, but our understanding was, since people are consuming more at home, so they can afford a better product at a cheaper price, because they don't have to
Absolutely.
pay that additional margin which they would have to pay in a restaurant or in a nightclub. But when I put this watch thing associated with it, then it doesn't match actually. Then it could have been
I mean, if you look at what LVMH, the recent results of LVMH or in any of the big companies, you will understand that everybody had one of the best, or even the high ultra luxury fashion companies, etc. Nobody had a better year than these last couple of quarters.
super. And second question, which is my personal, I was trying to search it, but I couldn't get it. What is the impact of this smartwatch on your premium watch industry? Because personally, I used to buy good watches, but after I started wearing this Apple Watch, I don't have any need of buying any other watch.
Absolutely, a very relevant question. We started questioning ourselves as well whether whether this will finish. But what we have seen, Sangram, is that an Apple Watch is now will very soon will become a necessity for many people, right? You would want to wear it. But a watch is no more a time saying keeping device. You don't buy a watch to say tell time, right? You have your mobile or whatever it is. A watch is going to be a fashion accessory, and a high-end watch will become an investment. If you look at that's why if you look at all our ultra luxury segment watches are all appreciating by 20%, 30%. If you buy a Rolex right now, in 2 years, probably you will sell it at 40%, 50% more premium. Right. So that's what is happening. So the 200 to 400, so for example, in an Indian market right now, the $200 to $400 segment in fashion watches and in wearable device, the wearable devices are growing at 3x more faster, and it's a larger segment. But that doesn't mean that the fashion watches will vanish. Everybody would have a different individuality to talk about. I mean, even in the call, you see a couple wearing still a traditional watch piece, right? So people would wear it. It is part of a statement. You would wear an Apple device. Anybody else also wears Apple. You wouldn't be able to distinguish your personality in the way which you want to be, right? And that's where a fashion accessory plays a role. We've also seen, adding to my point, our jewelry segment, not our fine jewelry segment, but our fashion jewelry segment explode. And one of the reasons is we thought, why do people suddenly need fashion jewelry? But it was because probably people were interacting more over here, right? We all talking to each other on Zoom. So for women, this was the best place, right? Earrings, bracelets, something on the neck. That was more of accessories they needed and more frequently they needed. So they started investing in $70 to $100 price point jewelry more so that they can change it every day. So these were all some specific changes which we found out. But what is important is that they were still ordering that along with their groceries, a watch or a jewelry would also come.
Mhm.
Right. Great.
Thanks, Jaish. Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. One
Yes, Kapil.
from Kapil. Yeah.
Actually, I had a question for Sangram. Sangram, you spoke about the off-premise and on-premise, right? How will they recover? So one of the hypotheses in our category is that, like we're seeing revenge shopping and revenge mall visits in many markets post the pandemic. What's your perspective on this on-premise, the restaurant, visit, mall visit coming back? We're seeing mixed trends across the country. I mean, India, half the country seems to have forgotten that anything ever happened. I mean, in Bombay, if you go around, I don't think the pandemic ever happened here. It doesn't look like, right? But the malls are, checking your vaccination certificates, and they're only 40% occupied. And so, what's your thought on that here from an on-premise point of view?
We were discussing a lot during the annual budget process, about this, that how it will likely to behave. But what I personally believe, and the larger segment of our companies, think tank, they think, is that there is still a sense of guilt, associated with the person, that I'm going and indulging in a party and kind of mixing with uh, different people, and tomorrow if something happens to me, I am posing a threat to myself, my health, and my family. So how I am not happy to put a picture on Facebook that I'm partying on the top of the world with my friends. It is no longer a sense of pride of being convivial and being together. It is more like showing yourself as irresponsible. So probably that sense of guilt will diminish as and when this rate of vaccination and this maturation, and this, when you understand that our likely probability of getting reinfected, or probability of getting infected after vaccination is too low, after booster or after something, when 80-90% of the world would be vaccinated, then probably the guilt will diminish, and you can see a huge growth, that people will actually get all over in the space, to compensate for that huge gap. We are all watching out for
Yeah.
that space.
So I'll be going to Kush now. So Kush is from a different industry, although, but how pandemic affected, and how consumers there, how services have been affected, and what are the impacts, and how is the guys?
Thank you, Professor, and really interesting hearing everyone's views from across different sectors. And I would begin by saying something that would probably make Cherish feel happy. So I think collectively in my home in the last 3 to 4 months, I think there are 5 watches which have made their way. And now my 6-year-old daughter is insisting that she needs a watch too. So that's for starters. And then my wife's hanging around with 2 watches, by the way. So I've seen her wear a Fitbit, and I've also seen her wear her fashion watch. So I was saying, like, how come you have 2 watches, right? One on each wrist. She said, well, it works, because I want to keep a tab on my fitness, but I also want to look good. So here's the other watch. And she's insisting that I wear 2 as well. So if you have any tips how to get out of this situation, because there's no way that I'm going to wear 2 watches.
No, I'm going to push you more into the situation, right?
Yeah. So I think now just getting back to where we stand. We guys have been, I would say, from the early days of digitization in India, which was moving cash to cashless, as we called it. When I began my journey about 12, 13 years ago, it was mostly about American payment companies who had set up shop in India, and they were looking at ways to digitize their customers, which could be a Citibank branch wanting a Citi wealth customer to get digitized, getting a Citi bank credit card, or an Amex telling us that, hey, I've got all these travelers coming into the country, and all hotels should accept American Express cards. And that's how we started, the whole piece. And India at that point in time was, nobody thought that, this is a wave which will become significant in India as well. We always thought, hey, okay, maybe 2 decades from now, we will also be somewhere close to where these, large American companies have reached. But lo and behold, I would say in the last 10 to 12 years, the pace at which this whole digitization has happened, the way consumers have embraced new ways of transacting, and we look at a ton of consumer data, right? So we have a bird's eye view. So I have about close to about 700,000 stores where our payment systems are running. So I could exactly in that way know what the trend in terms of who's spending where and who's spending what. But I would say that from 2015 onwards, we started to see that a lot of retailers and consumers started to understand the benefit of getting digitized, understand, the convenience that it brings, the visibility it brings on, what their spends are, and the security it brings, right? Because you're not carrying, bills you don't have money in your pocket, right? And in that ways, you feel a little more secure. I would say that all of this, this narrative had been on in India the last 7, 8 years. But what I'm going to say now is that the way we saw this transformation in terms of growth over the last 1.5 years of pandemic has been incredible. Never could we see that how quickly, people would step out and look at, finding new ways to either do business, right, or to make payments as a consumer. I would say that, the kind of resilience that India as a country has shown, and I'm not talking about, obviously, you guys are in a lot more organized formal space, you understand, obviously, retailing in depth, and obviously you understand the technology behind it and the benefits that it brings. But I am now talking about, that neighborhood, store guy, who's really like the first generation, second generation guy who's been running a departmental store for the longest period of time. The guys, worked on cash, and maintaining physical registers for making a note of all the sale he or she does. I would say when the pandemic hit, it was amazing to see, the resilience that this network, this community of entrepreneurs showed. I feel entrepreneurship runs in the blood of many Indians, right? Because as you walk out into the market, you'll see like every second guy is an entrepreneur, right? The guy is like every day opening the store, figuring out how to, deal with situations, and then, making sure that the guy's making enough money for the day. When all of this happened, we actually saw, a shift in terms of our people would go and push digital products as sales guys by saying, take a point of sale terminal, accept payments here. All big malls are doing it. You should also automate your, a dry cleaner store, for accepting digital payments. The whole conversation shifted in the last 2 years when people started coming back and saying, hey, I need ways of connecting with my customers and collecting for payments, because COVID is here and touchless is becoming very important, and I don't want to lose business, right? So we saw this fear factor setting in. I would also say that, selfishly speaking, we were one of the beneficiaries of what happened in the market, because, in a way, it kind of fit well into our story. We launched, we thought, why don't we launch a simple app? And I'm talking about, this is like around June of last year. We said, why don't we just launch on Play Store a simple app that you just download on your Android or iOS. The moment you download the app, this app is a fully inbuilt app through which you can send link to your customers for making payments. It has a QR code in it. You can take pictures and scan documents if you want any customer information. So it's like a full, all-in-one app, we created with these 4 or 5 functionalities. We just put it up on the Play Store. We did a little bit of tactical digital marketing by saying that, hey guys, now you have the easiest way, 5-minute, 3-step process. You can now get, wired for accepting digital payments. The month of launch, we had 50,000 stores that downloaded the app. And out of that, about 35,000 stores actively started using it. I mean, what we realized was that these were guys who actually had been, I would say, onboarded into this world of digital, not through us, but through, I would say, better community, the community which had better connectivity, a lot of 3G, 4G, connections on the phone, an influx of smartphones, social media, because we ran a lot of these, post those 3-month surveys, And every other retailer would tell us, hey, by the way, my daughter's got this phone. She uses it all the time. She's got 5 apps that she uses. When I saw this app, I just asked her to help me out. Within minutes, she did it. And I'm talking about really this guy who's like, now in his 70s, has never really seen anything. And forget about, an app. The guy did not even have a point of sale terminal to swipe a card, right? And so quickly the guy was able to now change onto this and say, hey, now I have a phone in the store that I only use for this, because smartphones are cheap, connectivity is very good, data plans are available. My customers are very smart, right? Everybody has a Paytm app, everybody has a phone pay app. You can just, exchange, money without having to physically do anything. What we realized was that, kind of connecting the dots to the marketing world, and, which has been the subject of today's conversation, is that as we've started to see that more, digitization is happening, where people are just going to the Play Store, downloading the app and starting to use it, I actually started to realize that you don't even need those many boots on ground to create distribution or sales. What we started realizing is that as we are going into, these micro retailer community, we are going into tier 3, tier 4 small markets, right? I'm not talking about a Jaipur anymore. I'm talking about, a Bikaner, a Jodhpur, these are the towns where we're seeing growth coming out of. Believe me, for us, it's now looking at social media, looking at something which is very vernacular and localized for that city or that town, creating again in local language a few YouTube videos, because believe me, nobody really wants to meet you and spend time with you for an hour when it's trading time in a store, right? Because the guy's store's open, my sales guy is going to go and eat 1 hour and still take money from you, right? I mean, you don't enjoy it, right? So because at the end of the day, you're there to sell, you're becoming a customer, right? Because somebody's coming and selling. So we've started realizing that as long as you can do these 3-4 things, create some localization, make your way into maybe a local newspaper that, every day the guy, reads with a cup of tea, right? Go onto YouTube, do some vernacular stuff, put some videos up. We started realizing that with distribution and reach on the backs of digital marketing, being a B2B company, right? We are not a B2C company. My customer is in another business, right? But what I'm realizing is that there is so much that, we are able to extract. I mean, no wonder, the Facebooks of the world have only continued to, kind of become larger and larger, because obviously these are the guys which are kind of owning this space of digital. But what I've realized is that over a period of time, India as a country which has maybe 50 million merchants, by the way, there are only about 4 million odd shops today which have digital payments, but the market is already 50 million. So like there's still 90% still to be digitized. Is it going to be another, army of 1,000 people going and meeting them and doing it the traditional way? No. People who can get smart, people who can connect digitally, people who can create a very simple, easy onboarding process. Processes are becoming very important. So I have seen that people would absolutely dump my app because it was taking more than 4 minutes or it had more than 4 steps. If you can create simple, automated onboarding experience, very easy call to action, you will see many takers in this country. And I feel that the journey is just about begun. So very excited. I hope obviously, COVID is behind us and, we keep hearing about new strains coming out and, new travel restrictions coming out. Some of our partners have been hugely impacted. So cinema halls have just started. They were the worst hit we could see. Travel and tourism was extremely badly hit. I would say highest transaction counts would happen in a Palladium mall, in a luxury store, in a DLF Emporium mall, because suddenly there are no weddings happening. People are not traveling. You've got more money in the pocket. So you're spending here. And, I think you guys made a lot of those points. I've seen people domestically, consumerism has grown, and F&B is the next sector which is booming. I mean, I don't want to talk about Kapil's store data because maybe I have it, but it has really started to pick up pace, especially, I mean, it's like pre-pandemic days, those thresholds have been broken. I hope it remains that way. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll be going to Nancy now to have an academic perspective of it. So how consumers' behavior has changed during this COVID time, and what are the strategies?
Hello, everyone. It's been wonderful hearing your presentation and listening to all of your stories. I'm coming to you guys from Miami, Florida. So I'm in the United States. It is 3:53 a.m. here, so it's very, very early. And I just wanted to to come in and join you. My expertise area is in social media marketing. I'm a social media consultant, so I do social media consulting for companies. And in addition, I'm also a professor at Florida International University, which is located in Miami. So it's been really interesting how the pandemic, I think for me being a technology enthusiast and just loving technology, I've really wanted technology to come further than it has been. And the pandemic really pushed it into a way that is really super exciting. And I was listening to you and thinking about how we've entered into this space where first we are meeting remotely, right? So that is something that has changed. And I mean, video conferencing has been here forever, but then during the pandemic, it just pushed it into a new realm. And then people got so excited about having the opportunity to connect with people around the world. I think that's one of the real changes that I've seen is that I've been able to connect more on a global level. So that has been super, super exciting. And it's really interesting. I think this weird time that we're in, like what you were saying is, we were all, at least here in the US for a couple of years, we're mostly at home and in sort of this lockdown state. And then only in the last couple of months, we have just started going out again. I don't know if that will change and we'll have another wave and then we'll go back in lockdown. But I do think that that's changed when we're talking about fashion. You were talking about fashion. People are excited to wear their clothes again and go out and wear their watches. So I think that that is a big change that is starting to happen. I think people were drinking at home, but now they're drinking again out in public. I went to an event just a few weeks ago, and one of the big things is people just want to see each other. I think people are just really excited about being social again, and I know that that's changing depending on where you're at in the state of the pandemic and the vaccination rates. But I am hopeful that we will reach a point where we will be able to really appreciate each other in person and have that one-on-one reaction. But I think the one thing that isn't going to change is there's always going to be this hybrid because people get comfortable being at home. It's like, wait, I don't have to go anywhere. I can just be on my couch at home, right? Shopping, whether it's they're shopping or they're going to an event. This whole hybrid is here to stay. I don't think that that is going to change. Like, I think people want to have the option of being at an event either in hybrid form or in person form. And the same thing with work and remote work. So my expertise really is in social media. And I think one of the big changes for social media during the pandemic was people were very stressed out and they really just wanted to see fun videos, and videos became huge during the pandemic. So that's in the US, TikTok, it became humongous, and then Instagram Reels really took off as well. So I think that you're going to see more and more video in every part of social media, and the algorithms, whether it's Twitter, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Facebook, really video is where it's at, and people now have easy access with their phones, and video is becoming better and better on your phones. So I think that you're going to see that video is going to continue to rule, and that was one of the areas that really continues to disrupt social media. The other area is influencer marketing, and influencer marketing has become more and more important. Consumers want to trust real people, right? And so they want to know that real people are wearing your watch. They want to know that real people are drinking your drink. They want to know that real people are eating your food. And so they want to hear from real people, and they're going to do that on social media. And when we talk about influencers, I'm not talking about necessarily even celebrities, but these micro influencers have become extremely important because we actually, every one of us are influencers. If you have a social media account and you have more than one follower, really you are an influencer. And even if you have, say, 1,000 influencers, those influencers are highly likely to be even more engaged with you than if you are an account with 1 million followers. And so these micro influencers are going to continue to be important, I think. And I think that that's one of the changes that happened during the pandemic, is that people really wanted to hear even more from real people about the products people were using. Social media, when we're talking about social media, another big change is you probably all are aware that Facebook has now changed its parent company name to Meta, right? And this whole metaverse is going to be a really interesting change, I think, in marketing in the future. And just like, video conferencing took a while to take off, and all technology really often takes a long time, and there's a curve to it. I think we're going to be seeing even more virtual reality and augmented reality in the future. We already see augmented reality with shopping. With IKEA, you can go onto your app and put furniture right into your home. And I think that these are going to continue to grow these experiences. Mark Zuckerberg says that in 5 years, he predicts that we'll be using augmented reality and virtual reality within social media. And we'll be having holograms and talking to each other instead of on our phones, but through holograms. And whether or not that's true or not, I'm not sure how quickly that is going. It's still hard for me to think about having this headset on and walking around and talking to people, but you never know. Maybe that is something that's in our future. But I do think the augmented reality is a little bit easier because you're still staying within that world, and you can do the shopping experience through that world as well. So those are some important changes that I see. And of course, privacy and data, especially with social media, that is going to continue to be a concern with consumers. They want to know that their data is safe, and there's no doubt that globally, social media companies are going to be held more accountable in the future. So that will most likely impact our advertising with social media and how much data we're allowed to see and to use and to collect. So that's something that I definitely see that has been disrupted and will continue to change. NFTs I'm just kind of following along with this, and I'm watching it very, very closely to see what is going to happen with these digital coins and blockchain. I wonder, when we're talking about payments, how that is going to continue to evolve, especially within social media. There's some new apps that are coming out that really are designed to to be social online with this experience of augmented reality, and while using blockchain. So I think that that's going to be really interesting to see. And kind of coming back to what you guys were saying before, I think that with all this technology and being online, people did come to this place where they also were really concerned about their wellness. And I always, even though I'm a huge technology enthusiast, and I have a lot of social media followers, and I use social media a lot because I teach social media marketing, and I'm also a social media consultant, I have to make sure that I use all of these tools and understand how they work. But at the same time, wellness, what you were saying before, is really important, and I'm connecting to reconnect. The more we use technology, the more I think we're going to have this opportunity to disconnect to reconnect, so that we can sort of do this reset, like what you were saying before, right? Having that reset is important. And then being purpose driven. Everyone spent a lot of time thinking during the pandemic about what should we be doing with our life? Why are we here? And I think that that's going to continue to affect brands and marketing a great deal, because people want to make a difference, and they want to help climate change. They want to make sure that the companies that they're supporting are doing good things in the world. And social good is going to continue to be really important, maybe more so than ever. We definitely have a lot of big challenges that need to be taken care of. And I think that consumers want to work with companies that are ethical and that are also doing social good. And if you can show that in the content that you're posting on social media, that can be really, really helpful. And videos, and doing that within videos, I think that is very key. So those are some areas that I saw with social media specifically, and technology with marketing and disruption.
Yeah, thank you, Nancy, for your insightful address. Now, one thing that has happened, and you all agree to that, that the e-commerce business has significantly grown. So there's a study in Latin America I was just going through that there around 13 million of people in the last 1.5 year, they have made their first e-commerce transaction. That means we think that, okay, probably we are e-commerce is very prevalent in Latin America, but there are also people who don't do that, but they have done. But with this e-commerce, adoption of e-commerce, one risk that also comes, and that is about the privacy, data privacy. We have Kapil, who is a digital officer also. We are also having Kush. So I'll be going to Kapil and Kush especially that to their take about this data privacy. So when I'm doing e-commerce, I should be very much sure that there will be no hanky tag with my data, so that my data will be safe. So how you can respond?
No, you're right. That's a huge issue. I mean, you just look at how Apple very smartly used that. I don't know if you've seen that wonderful creative that they made on Apple advertising, where every time you do something on the phone, there's people who are following you, right? So by the end of the commercial, there are about 1,000 people who are following you because they all have your data, right? The baker, the washer, the dry cleaner, everybody's got your data, right? So that's a big problem. That is a big problem. We are as a company, as a category, become far more aware of that. We have to respect customers' privacy, consumers' privacy. There's no doubt about that. Consumers will become far more careful about what they do with their data, right? So whole this general rule of permission marketing, which used to exist a few years ago, is become far more specific now, right? With devices like Apple or iOS introducing specific features where you can actually stop an app from tracking you, right? Google is going to go into this new space very, very soon. They're doing a lot of, I'm sure everybody's reading papers on that. So it's going to be difficult. I think it's very important for marketers to invest behind a very strong CRM capability at this stage. So you are connected with your consumer. You understand your consumer better. You understand their behaviors. So for example, I'll give you a small example. We had an email that came from a customer saying, "Listen, can you stop bugging with me with your SMSs and push notifications? I don't want to eat a burger." Right? So I went back and looked at data, and said, listen, this guy orders us once in 3 months, orders only on a Friday night, and typical frequency is like 3-4 times a year, and we send push notifications every twice every week to this guy. So obviously the customer will be pissed, right? So when you go back and invest in good capabilities around CRM, you understand your consumers better, you understand their buying patterns, and then you accordingly will have to create programs and create ways to reach them, which they are okay with. You can't just push out anymore. Our one big shift that's happening, and I'm sure everybody's seeing that happen in their category as well, is that digital, which used to be lip service earlier, then became YouTube and Facebook, and then became a little bit more than that in the last few years, is no longer just digital media. We've created I've been fortunate enough to create 2 verticals on CRM in 2 QSR companies, which is way beyond just digital marketing or digital media buys. Just to give you an example, we used to understand behaviors of at least 70 to 100 cohorts at any point in time, and run close to about 200 CRM campaigns at any point in time, which are targeted specific to their behaviors, their consumption patterns, their willingness to get contacted. So it's going to be a huge issue, and marketers will have to adapt to that. There is no choice, really. You'll have to respect customers' privacy.
Yeah. So, Kush, anything from you on this?
Yeah, sure.
Because you're in the service, yeah. So
Yeah, so I think some great points Kapil's made, and I guess one's got to be very mindful of all this. I will give the other side of the reality on when it comes to data. I'm talking about data privacy from a perspective of, from the perspective of IT security. What I mean is that today, because there's a good and a bad, right? Because there is so much digitization, which is why there are so many transaction details that are available, right? Because at the end of the day, there are traces, there are logs, there are files, there are reports, there are so many things, right? And a lot of those information pieces, I would say like millions of those transaction, details are available with third parties, right? Because let's say I may be a retailer, right? And then on the other end, the other person may be a bank. Back in the day, the transaction was very secure between the endpoint where the transaction was intended to be made and the consumers, the backend, which is the bank, right? So let's say I'm an HDFC Bank and I'm a Burger King, right? And it was a transaction, flow which was secure in a way between these two parties. Now the world has changed because this is a new world of fintechs, third parties, right? Who are coming and sitting right in between a bank, a financial institution, and a retailer, right? This third party now possesses in its systems millions of data, counts, right? What we've realized is that first and foremost, it's a very serious responsibility for companies who are holding data and information which is not belonging to them, which belongs to their partner bank, which belongs to their partner retailer, which belongs there to the customer, which is of the retailer or the bank, right? What we've realized is that the level of protocols today are not that high. What we've realized is that if you were to run a forensic audit, or you were to just get an auditor to have a full scan of your systems, 80%, I'm talking about SMEs, 80% of the SME companies, which could be a small time lender, fintech, company, a company which is just basically a third party DSA calling on a database, collecting information, 80% of the scans they run, they find vulnerabilities. They find ways in which somebody can hack that information. People in our country haven't taken this part seriously as yet because hackers, which have been all over the world earlier, have now started taking notice of India as a market, right? Because there is everybody's saying about growth, everybody's saying about business, everybody's saying how can I get more smarter, but you don't know that that there's going to be a fire that will come around where somebody will actually pull data out. You will end up getting into some kind of a problem that information starts to get released on dark web very easily. You will eventually end up getting impacted because you will end up getting hackers coming in and actually doing some ransomware threats on your system. So there is, I would say, a burning need to make sure that data protection becomes the integral element of every organization which is handling data. This whole concept of CISO, right, like this Chief Information Security Officer, did not exist. Maybe few of the larger companies would have a CISO in the company, but I would say now this role is as important a role as of a COO or or CMO or CBO or whoever it may be. So I feel that with the breakneck, the growth that we are seeing, we need to make sure that the security aspect of it is taken extremely seriously, and there should be a framework and protocols that the regulator should also put. If I want to get into the space of handling data, if I am not managing to go through the checklist of saying I have all these protocols in place, I should not be licensed to operate. But that doesn't happen today. It's all very loosely put, and anybody can jump in, get some Series A seed funding, start a company, start playing with data. I'm saying it's going to hit you back at some point in time.
So that is understandable. A very good input, I should say. So I'll go to Sangram. So whether data is very data privacy and all is very relevant in your industry, or The general perception is that it may not.
Oh, yeah. So actually, this alcobev industry is transforming. So, from a multi-channel, all the businesses are going, kind of, there is an emergence of omni-channel. And in this, in the omni-channel customer space, which is your store, web, social media, mobile phone. So the objective of the marketeer is to provide the same customer experience and design the strategies accordingly so that it creates a connected and consistent customer interaction across all channels. So in order to do that, all you need is huge amount of data, the behavioral data, the transaction data at every point. Now, as we know that, like there are controls like the GDPR in Europe, the CCPA in US, and all these, so they have these controls which we are all, abided by. The challenge is when, I was having a research of McKinsey, which was saying that about 67% of the consumer, they have either a negative or a neutral view, about when they're asked about that, what the companies do with the data. So they don't know. And balance 33% who think they know, then don't even know 20% of the actual usage of the data.
And
So
people are very apprehensive also. So when I
apprehensive.
opened it, so that is there.
But that's what I'm saying. So the data usage is very difficult in US and Europe. But in our country, it is, that protocols are not there. There is nothing called GDPR. There is nothing. So the data can be, shared, to other players, and they are sold in market at times. But time to come, it's going to emerge. But there is a unique thing which is going to come, which is a marketeer's piece. There is something going to come as DRM, like data relationship management. So what is found out that, to manage the data better, you need to have, a security center, user control, and you need to create value, for the customers when you're collecting the data. So very soon you will be seeing that when somebody is giving you the data, he is getting a benefit out of that, tangible or intangible, short term or long term, and there is a dialogue. So over time, customers may change their mind about giving access to their data. So reminding and refreshing the value exchange. Now it's like a huge, legal document which nobody can read. At the end of the day, there is small agree. So I mean, if you have to download the app or something, you don't have a choice than to agree. You cannot read 20 pages before activating a phone. So that's going to change. And this data relationship management, that when your data is being shared, you are getting, compensated with something, that is going to come, and that is a very clear thing. And what is happening in alcohol space, if you see like companies, all these companies, I mean, say Pernod Ricard after 10 years will be a marketplace. Pernod Ricard has already come with Drinks and Company, which is their own marketplace in Shanghai, in Paris. That that thing has come, which is not only it's an omni-channel concept. It's not only a shop; it's a shop with a e-commerce, with a different kind of entertainment and other elements. Like you'll be surprised that the digital in Alcobev has seen a growth of 327%. During 13 months from April to May, April 20 to May 21, 13 months data, I was saying 327%. And subsequently, our spends, the media allocation to digital has gone up by four times. A country like India, where the overall advertising and promotional spend, 15%, less than 15% is to go to digital in 2019. Now it is as big as 60%. So from 15% to 60% allocation is in digital. But does the digital mean that it is only boosting your, so-called videos and the moron communication into Facebook and Instagram? The answer is no. So the scope of data is also enlarging because the digital is the streaming platforms. We are only seeing YouTube in India, but there is Twitch, which is from Amazon. There is Mixer, which is from Microsoft. We know YouTube and Google. There is Caffeine from Fox and Disney. So there are these kind of platforms are growing by 3x times. And this streaming is getting crowdsourced, and people are actually doing creating virtual living rooms. If you know, there is an app like Bunch, Squad, Cast, in quarter one, Jan, Feb, March 2020, their follower base was less than 2,000. Now all of them have million plus followers. Like in India, there was something like House Party and all which came, right? The gaming is growing. Now people are not only gaming, right? Along with gaming, they are making virtual rooms and they are doing video chatting with each other. So a kid in sitting in India is chatting with his friend in US or in Shanghai. So just imagine, and that is happening on the game room, which is virtual. Think the amount of data which is going, and the same thing the alcohol companies are capitalizing. Now there are, I'll give you some interesting thing which you probably don't know, that there are a lot of virtual streamed events. So we started cocktail parties. Okay, cocktail parties over Bunch, which used to have more than 200,000 people all over the world. They were logging in, and in the local markets, it was tied up with dine-in, Zomato kind of things, because India being alcohol restricted in most of the states for home delivery, you didn't see much of it. But there are a lot of countries where alcohol can be delivered. So those apps, toppled with that. So if you go and enjoy that party and log into that party, you get a discount while ordering alcohol from Grab. So what is happening? Kids are all joining in that group, and there is music, there is some sort of entertainment, and from there they're putting order directly to the delivery agent, which is bringing their preferred alcohol, and there are food partners as well, and food. So there is home entertainment with food and alcohol, and digital entertainment in terms of live streaming, cocktail parties, and different tools, and it's getting virtually aired. And there are Wave, Seeps. There are different platforms which are getting more than million people. Like I'm telling, in last month there was Lindsay Starling playing violin and all. There are 400,000 plus attendance. Just imagine, it wasn't a virtual streaming, and Glenlivet, one of our brand, was associating with that. So I was surprised to know that in a city like Kiev, which is in Ukraine, so in that evening there was more than 10,000 bottles of Glenlivet sold. So I can't even imagine, when I got to know this kind of information, I found that we'll be completely redundant. Like our generation, at least I feel worried, because I'm 40 plus, and my generation, we were analog. We learned digital things, but the way consumer behavior is changing, and the way this presence of channel is changing. It is no longer supermarket, hypermarket, or even traditional stores. It's omni-channel. It's crazy. And in this whole space, data is even more interesting.
Yeah.
And that will
So,
be restricted.
yeah. So, one something from
Yes.
JD.
Thank you, Professor. I just had a question for Ms. Nancy. During the pandemic, you talked about that during pandemic, and we also saw that people consume more videos, etc. Right? But Nancy, we found out that people wanted to watch videos of puppies and cats and kittens, right? So the challenge is always that how do you give consumers content which they find relevant and at the same time serve a marketing purpose for the brand? You understand? I mean, we can create content for the sake of creating and entertain people, but it was very difficult to find out that how do you create content that is relevant to them, because they are always in this cooking space or kitten space or dog space. You understand?
Yeah,
How do
no,
you
definitely. I think the key is creating a story that resonates with them. I mean, it's all about storytelling. I mean, social media is all about storytelling, but it's also telling the story through the right lens. So the story that you're going to tell, if you're a B2B, for example, on LinkedIn is going to be very different if you're selling consumer brands and to, I don't know, to 20-year-olds. So where you're going to be hanging out is going to be different. So I know that you guys, I don't think TikTok is in India right now, at the moment, at least. Maybe it will come back. I'm not so certain, but there's some other platforms that are similar to that. But Instagram Reels is a very, very short clip, right? It's 30 seconds. So how do you tell your story in 30 seconds? It's very hard, right? And so being entertaining, but at the same time as getting your message across is extremely hard. But I think that the more that you can use influencers to help you tell your story, the more authentic I think your story will become. And people love watching real people telling your stories. So I really think influencers are extremely important for social media, and getting them to generate content, and user generated content is always more powerful than even the company telling you about. And what I think has been really interesting with social media is it used to be you could only find that data if they typed in whatever, Coca-Cola or whatever it is that you typed in, right? But now we have software where we can actually know that there is a Coca-Cola label on that video, right? And so there are ways of tracking that information. And so that has actually become a lot easier for you to even to look at videos that consumers are making. So social listening is extremely important in making sure that you're listening, but also I think that you have to make sure that you're telling your story correctly depending on the platform that you're on, because a video for Facebook is very different than a video for Twitter. And obviously even the size is different, whether it's an Instagram reel. I mean, Instagram reels are, I cannot tell you how important they are right now on Instagram. You will get so many more hits on Instagram if you use Instagram Reels versus if you just post an image or a photo. And this continues to change. It's going to continue to morph. And so I think that the key is understanding your customers, which I have been listening to all of you talk about your customers, and you are clearly listening to what are their needs and what are their wants, and then making sure that you're telling them those needs and wants through the video, but in a creative way that doesn't feel like you're just selling to them, that you're really telling it through some story, whether it's a fun story or it could even be a serious story. People respond to emotions. Emotions are the most important thing. If you can make someone laugh, if you can make someone cry, emotions are really how people respond. And I think that that's one of the reasons people were looking for happiness, and so that's why these dance videos became such a hit. But TikTok and Instagram Reels isn't just about dancing. You'll see all kinds of people doing other creative videos on there as well. I think there's a place for all companies, depending on who your market share is and who you're trying to reach.
Thank you.
That's great. So I'm having a question for particularly Cherish, that regarding this marketing channel strategy, you are dealing with jewelry industry. So is there any disruption? Is there anything that COVID created and you tried to negotiate?
Absolutely. So, two points which a couple also mentioned. It's digitization which happens 360, and to a point which Professor Nancy was making, that disruption has always been there. Like video we could do the same thing 10 years ago, right? 10 years ago, still we could have done a video conferencing among all of us. But the fact that we accept to do more of it, and to understand that we could do business transactions right now. For example, the watches and jewelry industry is known for its big parties, big events, multi-million deals being said. I mean, to Kush's point, we also operate on a business-to-business portal, right? Across the region, I have around 75 distributors who are retailers and slash wholesalers as well. People who are, like, for example, do between $20 to $30 million yearly turnover. Now, these people, we used to call them to a central place, let's say in Dubai or in Basel World, showcase the watches. They would write orders as big as, let's say, $100,000, $200,000. Now, that is gone, right? These events are not happening. But at the same time, we are doing business. The same events is completely transformed into digitization, where I try to show jewelry. Suppose I'm selling to Nancy a new collection of Tommy Hilfiger jewelry. I'm trying to show her on the camera. She tries to understand. She asks questions. I have the best lighting so that I show the products in the best way. And she writes an order to me. That's it. Earlier, she would never place an order unless and until she touches and feels the product, right? But now there is no option. There is no option. The consumer over there still wants the product, right? We were thinking that, I need to do, the buyers of in these organizations, fashion houses thought that, we need to go and find this, right? We need to go see people in person. And companies are also very happy because what has happened? We have saved on travel expenses. We have saved on event expenses. So those things will never ever come back to the same level. Of course, we have also found out, Professor, that there are certain business situations we are able to resolve better when we are meeting people in person. So the answer would be a hybrid version of business. Travel will not be the same. Travel will probably be 40% of what it used to be. Our events will never be the same, probably would be 10% of what it used to be, but that is what will emerge. In terms of a channel shift, to answer your question, our online channels, which were probably close to 15 to 18% of our total contribution, has now, for at least for the Middle East, India, and Southeast Asia region, changed to 45%.
Wow.
Oh,
All right. Yes, as big as 45%. And at the same time, the overall pie remaining almost the same or slightly less. But that shift has changed many things within the industry, meaning we are own employee workforce. To Sangram's point, we have a lot of people, even in my generation, who are born in the analog device and trained into digital. But we need teams who are more from, Kush's generation. You understand? So people who are more young and you are more born in that digital generation to work for us, to hold our hand through this, because for us, it's still, this pandemic is not going to go out. I don't think it will come back in different versions, or it has completely changed the way we see business. We will never go back to the same way we do business, right? We are all over here trying to understand. So we need teams who are well equipped and skilled within that segment. And that's where we are trying to operate, and most of us are succeeding. I don't think it's a challenge in terms of marketing. To Nancy's point, Nancy, I can tell you, supporting your point, that the biggest success we are seeing these days for certain products which we are introducing in the market is collabs. Whenever we are identifying a successful influencer and actually creating a capsule collection around the person, it is a sellout in minutes, right? The product will drop. Let's say we'll announce that the product will drop at 12 o'clock, 200 pieces, special edition with this person, next person. Within 15 minutes, it's sold out, because that influencer or that person has a specific follower who believes this person is genuine, right? So that genuinity within the product and within the communication is making an impact. It even goes, brands are, I think, even going a step further by collaborating. You would see fashion brands like Tommy Hilfiger, Timberland creating a capsule collection. In the bigger brands, you will now, if you go to a Gucci store, you will find a capsule collection of Gucci and Balenciaga, right? With logos intertwining. So these are all elements which we would have never thought about before a pandemic. Now everything makes sense. You and me, we sell to the same guy, we sell different products. Maybe together we can sell both of our products to the same guy. This is the conversation we're having. We are not, maybe it's not right to say, but I don't think we are going to compete with anybody anymore. We are competing for the consumers. At least from my industry, we are competing for more real estate on the consumer's hand and neck, right? So together, if we can get more, we will collaborate more. So to answer your point, sir, channels have started to collaborate.
I find that really interesting, because that's so important, because if you really understand who your consumers are and what they want, they're going to want a car as well as a watch, right? And so if you're selling to them at the same time, that makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So So that's great. Actually, there are 5 speakers, and our time is very, very limited. So we're constrained by time. It's already 3 o'clock. We're past time, and now we have to close now because the next session is there. Great contribution by all of you. Some new information to me. I have never thought that alcohol industry, the digital intervention is so much, and there is a growth of around 365%. Shangram said around that. So, that I have never imagined. So that is happening. So life is changing, world is changing, and this pandemic is becoming endemic now. It is no more a pandemic. The endemic will stay with us, and we may be prepared for some new disruption in the coming days. So this particular pandemic has created a lot of learning from us, and not only from the channel, not only from data privacy and all those whatever we discussed, we have now learned that how we can use home as a multifunctional unit. We are doing parties at home, we are working from home, isn't it? And we are doing everything from home. So the point isn't that may stay, because what I was gathering from one of my friends who is in the IT industry, some of the companies have given them offer that, okay, you can rest the time also, even pandemic is over or not, you can continue from your home and your salary will be the same. But if you are in, say, working in USA previously, now you are come to India, so your salary will be reduced depending on the overall price parameters. Now, but that is something we never thought, we couldn't imagine probably that we can continue this without going to office. So home, working from home, and also there's a lot of work-life balance also when you come from home. My one of my friends who is in the IT industry, he works from home right now also, and but there also he works for months nights, and he is happy. He's probably putting more effort. So now things have changed significantly, and we have to, and these changes may be there with us. Thank you so much, everybody, for your contribution, for coming to this session and making this session successful. I think a lot of information we gathered about various industries and the academic perspective also. So I am once again on behalf of FORE School of Management and FIMC Conference as a convener, I really express my sincere gratitude to all of you. Okay, with this we conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Great
Thank
meeting
you,
you all.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.